There's this particular, like, existential dread when the thing you've built your sense of self on and your vision of your future and your career upon is threatened. And this deep sense of unfairness of, like, how come everybody can just play their instrument and I'm over here having this problem? Why can't I be one of the people who just has, like, effortless, great technique? And why can some people apparently have very bad technique and it not manifest in injury? Repetitive stress injuries can happen to musicians of all kinds, to athletes of all kinds, and I wanted to make a video telling my story of being in college and practicing the piano in a way that was harmful, of injuring myself, of feeling all those feelings of fear and panic and trying everything and having some things work, some things not work, and having all this play out over the course of years and coming out the other side still being able to play and practice and have a life in music. I was diagnosed with tendonitis around 10 years ago by a hand and wrist surgeon, and I consider tendonitis to be something that I live with and manage, something that, like, flares up every now and then, rather than something I've overcome completely. Although I've come a very long way from routinely having to take days off from playing to almost never having to do that, and being able to play and jam and practice pretty much uninhibited. I started with the guitar when I was 13, and I was 20 and at Berklee by the time I really got serious about the piano. And by the time I made that switch, I was already an advanced musician, interested in playing advanced things, and I really only had a few months of playing under my belt when I started obsessively trying to learn all this high-level jazz and prog rock material. I very much had that, like, music school energy of being highly motivated to do the work that it takes to be as great as, like, Corey Henry and Chick Corea and the greats, and having all the time in the world to lock myself in a practice room to accomplish that. And that's excellent. That's a great attitude to have, as long as you realize that there are unhealthy ways to go about it. Of course, it's great to reach high and push yourself, but I also didn't really have any piano technique built up yet, and I was practicing for too long, and I was not warming up and stretching or taking breaks, and on top of that, I was not keeping my body in shape or eating well, really. One night in particular, I was particularly inspired, and I pushed myself harder than usual for longer than usual, and I woke up the next day with this fire in my forearm whenever I touched the keyboard. And it was still there the next day, and the next day, and even when I would step back and take a break for a bit, it would flare up again if I played the keyboard for any length of time. There was this panicked period of spending hours on Google reading everything that anybody had to say about tendonitis, and just feeling like, this is not happening. Music is my life. This is not happening. So then began the road of trying everything. I took long walks around Boston because I read that increasing blood flow would promote healing. I wore a wrist brace. I bought protein powder. I got acupuncture. I started taking collagen supplements because I read that, well, because your tendons are made of collagen. I hesitate to say that those things were for nothing, because they probably did help with healing my initial injury, but certainly none of those things was addressing the root cause, which was, of course, my poor piano technique. Doing the hard work of deeply examining and retraining my technique was the last thing I wanted to do at the time. I wanted the solution to be like a nutritional deficiency, so I could take some supplements and have the problem just go away. Which of course sounds ridiculous, but I was in denial. And I wanted more than anything to just go back to hitting the practice room. So in 2011 I dropped out of Berklee, for various reasons, this being one of them. I come home to New Jersey and I see a physical therapist who does a special massage on my forearm with like a little metal tool. They show me some stretches, they do ultrasound therapy, they show me an exercise with a little 2-pound weight to lift to strengthen my forearm muscles. Does any of this help? Maybe. But what definitely helps is that around this time I start going to the gym and swimming. It would be obvious to any sports athlete that you need to keep your body generally in shape in order to withstand the physical toll that you put it through, to heal quicker, to have all your bones and muscles be working together optimally. As musicians, we are athletes. We're athletes of the small muscles. Maybe gym class should be a requirement at music school, where they show you stretches and some basic body conditioning. When I started working out, and especially swimming, it felt like my body did a better job at keeping the tendonitis at bay. Side note, imagine me at the gym lifting my little 2-pound weight surrounded by people who are bodybuilding and getting ripped. It was great. Still though, this period of time and the next few years are characterized by never being able to play as much as I really wanted to play, and routinely having to take a day or two or more off from playing because just in the course of normal practicing and rehearsing, I would overdo it and re-injure myself. I think the worst part about this was that flare-ups in my tendonitis would always directly coincide with flare-ups in my enthusiasm for music. Just as I would get really excited about playing and practicing and want to push myself a little more, I'd have a flare-up and have to step away from the keyboard. It's difficult to understate how demoralizing this cycle was. And there was always this voice that would be like, you're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to be a professional musician. You might have the motivation to become great, but you physically can't do it, so you should probably figure out something else. But I didn't quit, and it probably wasn't all due to perseverance and courage either. It was also just due to quit and do what? This is what I am. This is what I've always been. Around this time, I hear of the Taubman Method of piano technique. This is a technique developed around the fundamental goal of ergonomic correctness at the piano, and it's known for its ability to get injured players back on their feet. So I start seeing a Taubman teacher that lives close to me, and she wanted me to stop playing everything and only practice what she told me to practice. The first week she wanted me to only practice dropping onto one key. And she told me all about how to balance my arm weight, and how my arm and wrist and finger joints needed to be, and I quit after just a handful of lessons. I kind of knew that a ground-up revamping of my technique was the real solution, but I was just not going to not play with my band or jam or play gigs. It just wasn't going to happen. I was not really ready to take a step back from playing like that. So for a few more years, I continue with the same cycle of problems. Flash forward, it's 2015, and I'm in Philadelphia at the University of the Arts finishing my degree, and right away my tendonitis flares up in my first semester. Luckily, the two main teachers in the piano department had their own experiences with injury and retraining. So through the school, at no extra cost to me, I'm able to not only study with a Taubman teacher, but one of the most well-known Taubman teachers in the whole country. This was an amazing opportunity for me, and by this time I was finally ready to do the work. I also kind of had no choice. So I drop out of my ensemble at UArts, I tell my band that I'm not going to be practicing for a couple months, and I go through one semester of Taubman retraining. I learn how to correctly balance my arm weight, I learn about forearm rotation, I learn about moving my hand in and out of the key bed to compensate for the different finger lengths rather than twisting. For a whole semester I practice very simple, purely technical movements, and the learning is very slow and incremental. And I'm not that far into playing my first piece with two hands, not even at full speed, when the semester ends. I leave my last lesson extremely upset. It was like, that's it? Now I just go back out into the world and play? I don't even know how to really integrate these things into my playing. But even though what I learned was underdeveloped, I did uninstall some bad habits and install some good habits. And what I found over time is that this took my tendonitis from being this big, ever-present problem to a small occasional annoyance. It's by no means perfect. My technique could still be way better. I still get fatigued. I still have discomfort sometimes. I probably couldn't play for 8 hours a day, but the retraining made things way better. I've had flare-ups since then, but at nowhere near the frequency that I used to. Frankly, having to go through all this has made me a better musician and a better teacher. I mean, maybe it would be better if I never had tendonitis and I just had great technique right off the bat, but it would also be better if I was just born a child prodigy. That's not the reality that I'm inhabiting, so I don't really spend time dwelling on it. I'm more patient with myself and others. I'm better at practicing a reasonable amount on a consistent basis rather than going through sporadic bursts of playing for 8 hours a day. And not having naturally great technique has I think, given me an ability to really break things down and understand all the little layers that go into any piece of knowledge. And that's been really good for my ability to break things down for others in my teaching. Another takeaway is that avoiding injury and becoming a better player are one in the same thing. I was originally extremely reluctant to stop everything and just work on technique. It felt like some kind of step backwards. In reality, learning how to play more correctly has opened more doors in my playing than anything else has. I've actually recently started taking Taubman lessons again. Not because of my tendonitis, but because I want to really go the distance with it and learn to play the things that I can hardly imagine myself playing. Also, it would be cool to teach it someday and help people who struggle in the same way that I struggled. Sometimes I watch videos of people at the highest levels of virtuosity and think to myself, my fingers don't do that. They just don't. I can't even imagine what it would feel like for my fingers to do that. The truth is, my fingers probably could do that with careful study of the optimal way to play. And careful study of the optimal way to play is the solution if you've hurt yourself playing incorrectly. This video isn't meant to be advice exactly. I don't know what other people should do. I don't know the root causes of other people's problems. I'm certainly not a doctor. I'm certainly not an expert in Taubman technique. I certainly recognize that some people's repetitive stress injuries are way worse than mine, and that not everybody has access to specialists and physical therapists and lessons and gyms. But maybe there are people out there who are living with that stress and existential dread that comes with their vision of their future being threatened. And maybe I can alleviate some of those feelings in some people. Maybe hearing the testimony of somebody who's been through it and come out the other side will inspire somebody to keep going, keep trying things, keep pushing, to not give up. Or better yet, to be smart about how you push yourself, to keep your body in shape, to stretch and warm up and take breaks. I don't know how to end this exactly, so the end. Definitely reach out to me if you want to talk about this more. Good luck. I hope this existing on the internet has some positive effect. And yeah. Goodbye.